My name's Cole Davis, and I've lived in Elk Ridge, Texas my whole life. Quiet town, big skies, and the kind of place where folks wave even if they don't like you. I bought a 20-acre ranch on the edge of town 10 years ago. Horses, cattle, and freedom from nosy neighbors. Or so I thought. 3 months ago, the HOA expanded its reach. I knew the moment Karen Moffat, the self-appointed queen of the HOA, pulled up in her Lexus SUV, sunglasses on like she was FBI. Her license plate said GR8 Life. The irony wasn't lost on anyone who'd ever dealt with her. "Mr. Davis," she chirped, marching up my dirt driveway in high heels that weren't made for soil. "We need to talk about the eyesore you've built along the south end of your property." "You mean my fence?" I asked, glancing over at the new wooden post and rail barrier I'd installed to keep the cattle in. "Yes," she said with a grimace like she'd just stepped in cow manure. "It doesn't meet the aesthetic standards of the HOA. We require white vinyl fencing, 3 feet high, evenly spaced. Yours is rugged." "It's a ranch," I said slowly, like she might be unfamiliar with the concept. "The fence is for livestock, not decoration." She blinked, unfazed. "Well, the HOA now includes your property, as per our recent expansion. Page 14 of the covenant." I didn't bother hiding my smirk. "I never signed your covenant." "Well, you're within the designated area. We had a vote. You voted to include my ranch." I raised an eyebrow. Karen smiled, the kind of smile that precedes someone calling a tow truck on you just because your truck's tire touched the curb. "Yes," the majority agreed. I shook my head. "Lady, my ranch is on unincorporated land. You can't vote me into your kingdom." She narrowed her eyes like a hawk spotting prey. "We'll see about that." The next few weeks were a cold war. Karen filed noise complaints about roosters crowing at dawn, which is what roosters do. She complained about the smell of manure wafting into her gated community a mile down the road. One time she stood across the road filming my horses with her phone like she was compiling evidence for Animal Planet. But the final straw came on a Tuesday morning. I woke up to find a notice nailed to my front gate. "You are in violation of HOA Code 4.12b. You have 14 days to remove your fence or face legal action." I stared at the paper for a good 10 seconds, then turned around, grabbed my coffee, and walked back into the house without saying a word. Now, here's where it gets interesting. What Karen didn't know, what most people in town forget unless they see me in uniform, is that I'm the elected sheriff of this county. It's not a power I swing around, but sometimes it's useful when people push too far. So I made a few calls, confirmed with the county that my property remains outside HOA jurisdiction. Then I did something petty, something satisfying. I extended the fence, higher, stronger, and right along the property line near where Karen's backyard backs up to the wildflower meadow that separates her McMansion from my ranch. That fence went up over a weekend. My buddies helped, local ranchers, deputies, even the mayor showed up with a cooler of beers. Karen showed up too, screaming. Sunday morning dawned clear and hot, the way Texas summers do, sun high, birds loud, and Karen louder. We were halfway through finishing the extended fence, right along the boundary line that touched the corner of her pristine, HOA-mandated backyard. Her husband, Brad, a man with a permanent tan and zero spine, stood a good 10 feet behind her holding a tiny dog wearing a Gucci sweater. "You can't do this!" Karen screamed from her side of the property line, clutching her phone like it was a grenade. "This is illegal. This is trespassing. I'm calling the authorities." I leaned on a post, wiping sweat off my brow with a bandana. "Go right ahead," I said, "but make sure to let them know I'm already here." "What does that mean?" she barked. My buddy Rick, a deputy with a cowboy hat twice the size of his patients, chuckled. "Should we tell her?" "Let her find out the fun way," I said. Karen turned her back, dialing 911 like she was summoning the wrath of the heavens. She marched back and forth in her designer flip-flops, waving her arms like she was conducting an orchestra of fury. Brad, meanwhile, was busy whispering to their shivering chihuahua, "It's okay, Biscotti. Daddy's got you." 15 minutes later, a patrol car rolled up the road, lights flashing lazily. I watched from the shade of my barn, sipping lemonade, as Deputy Lisa Hopkins stepped out. She was 6 feet tall, no nonsense, and wearing her mirrored aviators, like the world was just one long interrogation. Karen practically sprinted toward her. Officer, thank goodness. I need you to arrest this man. He's harassing me. He's building an illegal fence. He screamed at me and my dog." Lisa glanced over at me and nodded. "Hey, Sheriff." Karen blinked. "Sheriff, what?" Lisa didn't bother correcting her. "Let's take it from the top, ma'am. What exactly are you accusing the sheriff of doing?" Karen's jaw unhinged like someone had rewound her whole understanding of reality. I didn't know he was." "You can't be the sheriff. You live here." "That's usually how sheriffs work," I said, walking up slowly. "We live where we protect." Karen looked like her brain was buffering. This is a conflict of interest. You can't investigate yourself. I'm not under investigation, I said with a smile. You called 911 on a legal property owner building a legal fence on his legal land. Would you like to continue? She tried to recover, switching tactics mid-sentence. This fence, it's disturbing the view. We had an agreement with the city. It's ruining property values. Lisa crossed her arms. Ma'am, the sheriff's land is outside HOA jurisdiction. As long as his fence meets county regulations, and it does, there's no crime here. Karen's voice dropped into a whisper. Scream. But it's ugly. Ugly's not illegal, I said, sipping again. That's when the real twist happened. Lisa said, Actually, Sheriff, you might want to know, this isn't her first call. We've had 3 nuisance complaints in the last month, all dismissed, but today, she falsely reported a trespass. Karen paled. I didn't. Lisa pulled out her notepad. I'm going to have to file a report, ma'am. You can contest it in court. Karen's fury curdled into disbelief. You're siding with him? No, ma'am, Lisa said. I'm siding with the law. The patrol car rolled away with Karen stomping back across her perfectly trimmed lawn, fuming like a kettle. The moment she disappeared inside, I turned to Rick. Think she's done? He laughed. Not a chance. This is Karen. This was just round 1. He was right. For about a week, things were quiet. Suspiciously quiet. Karen must have been plotting, which, knowing her, meant a clipboard, a mirror, and a glass of Chardonnay. I kept my routine, rounding up cattle, maintaining the fence, and nodding politely to the occasional HOA drone driving by, trying to document code violations. That is, until Saturday morning hit like a hammer. I was in my truck heading into town when I saw it. A massive banner draped across the fence line, bright red letters on a white background that read, This property is in violation of community standards, HOA enforcement pending. It was stapled into the wood like they were trying to ward off demons. Next to it, a signpost had been shoved into the ground with a laminated HOA Notice of Demolition Review. I laughed so hard I nearly spit out my coffee. I parked, walked right up to the sign, and saw the name at the bottom, Karen Moffett, HOA President. Well, she wanted a war, so I gave her one. Karen Free Zone. First thing I did, called the county commissioner, then the county zoning office, then code enforcement. Every single one confirmed the obvious. Karen's sign was bogus. No authority, no enforcement, no leg to stand on, and posting that demolition warning, that was impersonating a public official, a felony. The next day I filed a report. The county prosecutor sent Karen an official cease and desist letter, but instead of laying low, she hosted a neighborhood emergency meeting. That's when the story hit peak ridiculous. It was held at the local community center. Free coffee, stale cookies, and a sea of homeowners who mostly showed up for gossip. I walked in through the back in plain clothes, cowboy hat low over my brow. My deputy Lisa was already there, arms crossed, leaning against the wall like a bouncer at a nightclub. Karen stood at the front like she was about to deliver a TED Talk on tyranny. This man, she snapped, pointing to a blown-up photo of my fence taped to a corkboard, has created a visual assault on our neighborhood. It violates everything this community stands for: harmony, standards, and safety. Someone raised a hand. Didn't the sheriff say he's not part of the HOA? He thinks he isn't, Karen spat. But we're expanding. We need to bring the area up to code before property values drop. We can't just have livestock next to our children. Someone else mumbled. He's had livestock there for 10 years. I finally stepped forward. Karen, I said, removing my hat. You're done. The room went silent. Everyone turned. Karen's eyes bulged. You're trespassing on HOA meeting grounds. Nope, public building, paid for with my taxes. She fumbled for control. You can't intimidate me just because you're the sheriff. I'm not here as the sheriff, I said. I'm here as a landowner, but don't worry, I brought backup. That's when the door opened again. The mayor stepped in. The town collapsed back. Mayor June McClellan was a sharp, no-nonsense woman with steel gray hair and boots that had seen more mud than Karen had seen dirt. Karen Moffett, she said loudly, you're hereby ordered to cease all HOA activity targeting properties outside your jurisdiction. You're being investigated for misusing HOA funds and misrepresenting legal authority. The room exploded with whispers. Karen gasped. You can't do this to me. I've served this community. No, ma'am, June said. You've harassed it. Karen stormed out, nose high, heels clacking like firecrackers. Brad followed quietly, biscotti under his arm and eyes full of shame. The fence stands. Tall. Weeks passed. The banner came down. The fence stayed up. Karen? She resigned from the HOA for health reasons, though rumor had it the real sickness was ego bruising. Brad sold the house a month later. New owners, a retired couple with a love for country music and barbecue. We got along just fine. The HOA backed off permanently. The town council put new rules in place preventing any HOA from expanding without county approval. And guess who they asked to help write the draft? That's right. So now, every time I look out at that sturdy fence, I don't just see wood and nails. I see freedom, justice, and a world where Karens don't win. Not here, not in my county, not on my ranch.